Hi guys, happy Monday. Welcome back to another episode of Soulful Living with Megs. As always, it is so great to have you here back for a moment of connection with me. Oh my goodness, you guys. Hi, I missed you. Happy Monday. I hope your week has been going fantastic so far. Whenever you're listening to this, I hope that you're feeling so full and bright and all of the good things. I just finished watching a video, actually a few on Instagram from one of my good friends, Kaya. She listens to the pod. I've mentioned her before. Hi, my sweet friend. I miss you. Please come back soon. Anyway, just before I got on the mic here, I was watching her recent post on Instagram, and she is one of the most incredible movers I've ever met. Dance-wise technique, obviously, goes without saying, but it just made me feel so much, honestly. And I love that this art form, because you guys know, obviously, I love dance and what it does and the artistic side of it, but I love that this art form says so much without any words. And it was just brought to such a beautiful place, and I feel so content now sitting with you and chit-chatting and talking through all of the things that I want to discuss today. But honestly, you should check out her Instagram. I don't know what it is. Let me try to... I'm gonna give you a shout out, Kaya. It's Kaya Tusa. Anyway, if you go to my Instagram followers, you can find her. She's truly beautiful inside and out, and just the quality of movement she has is pretty unmatched, and what a treat that was to show. And she also reminded us that perfectionism doesn't exist, which I love that. We always need a reminder because we are often so critical of ourselves for honestly no reason at all, because I don't think, are as critical of others as we are to ourselves. And we just need to be a little bit kinder to ourselves because we are quite fascinating beings. Anyway, that was my sappy intro. I have been excited to talk about this topic today. This thing that I'm going to talk about right now before we get into it does tie in at the end, coincidentally. Was it coincidentally? Because what I actually learned the other day, I was watching this video while I was taking a bath because I'm an iPad kid. Without the iPad, though. Never had one. But I always have to watch something when I'm cleaning or cooking or taking a bath or eating, whatever. Anyway, I was watching this YouTube video about the concept of resonance, and I will link the video in the show notes below. It was a super quick one, probably 10, 11 minutes. And it was this guy talking about the psychology of it and the concept behind resonance and how everything happens for a reason. It's never by chance. And I know that we use that a lot. We always say a coincidence, this is a coincidence, like small world. But if you actually break it down and listen to what this guy was saying, he does remind us that nothing is ever by chance. And things shift when your energy shifts, and the universe adapts once your energetic field changes. So that's why it feels like sometimes you're in the same scenario over and over again, even if it's with different people or a different career. Sometimes you feel, I guess, stuck is a word, or you find yourself dating the same type of people over and over again, or you find yourself being in the same types of friend groups over and over again with the same energy, with the same feelings that it brings. And that's because of this concept and how nothing is by chance, and the universe will give you exactly what you are, basically. So and I think he said something about how the universe doesn't give you what you want, the universe gives you what you are, which makes a lot of sense, and hopefully I'm not botching that. But from what I took from it, it's the fact that once you change that energetic field, once you realize I need a shift and then actually make a change, that's when the universe and God will give you all of those new experiences and then keep showing you over and over again, this is where your energy is, and that's why you keep attracting these types of things or these experiences or people or whatever it is. But anyway, it was very cool. And then I think ties perfectly into what I wanted to talk about today, which was taking your own advice and how difficult it is. And a couple days ago, I was on FaceTime with my best friend, Nat, and we were just catching up, chit chatting, and we were talking about something where, in the end, after I listened to her, she had said, "Well, what do you think I should do?" or something along the lines of that. And then we obviously talked some more, but it got me thinking about the concept of advice and turning inward. And I was kind of asking myself, even before I said anything, well, what would I do personally? And obviously, I'm not in the situation that we were talking about, but what would I do? And then it got me thinking again about how I kind of give a lot of advice, like even on the show here. I talk a lot to you guys because I cannot stop yapping, but I'm always saying some form of advice, whether or not you take it, because of course, this is a space in a world where I think you should take whatever resonates with you, and then if it doesn't, then that's okay. It doesn't need to sit with you. But I often get asked for advice a lot. I feel like I'm a little wise in that sense. I quite enjoy the feeling of helping others, and I feel like I do help people when I give advice. But I was kind of questioning, yeah, I give a lot of advice, but do I actually follow the advice I give? And truth be told, I think most of the time I do. At least now, I feel like I am in a different, like, energetic field. I feel like because I'm a Capricorn and I'm crazy about my schedule and discipline, I am very disciplined, that I do want things to go a certain way, and like sometimes I just have to do it, and then I'll do it, and then once I do it I feel good and whatever. But I mean, I'll be honest, sometimes it does take a little bit of time to take my own advice and to actually do something that I've said other people should do, or it is challenging at the end of the day. So I was kind of questioning it, like, well, why is it hard to take our own advice? I was looking up some things online to see if there was a Reddit thread about it, or any like type of article, and anything that I've kind of read, I'll obviously tag in the show notes as well. But there were some points that I thought about and kind of read about that tie into why it's difficult for humans to take their own advice, but it's so easy to give it out to others. And we're going to kind of break it down, because I think the whole point of soulful living, and that I love to talk to you guys about, is just to shed light on certain topics and experiences that we have, to remind you that you're not alone in the world, and that people all around you experience these things, and that it's not just you that you're facing these challenges or these adversities. You know what I mean? So, partly why it's difficult to take our own advice is that it's hard to trust ourselves. And I think I'm speaking from experience here big time with this. I feel like we doubt ourselves a lot in life, and we kind of second guess whether or not either we're qualified enough to do something, or whether or not we should have done this or that, whatever it may be. Even when I'm thinking about this from a career perspective on my part, when I complete tasks, sometimes I'm not fully confident in my abilities, which is kind of sad, because I wouldn't be in the role that I am in if I wasn't able. And obviously I'm able to do this. I know that I perform well, but I think that there's a layer of just a little bit of doubt as to, can I fully trust myself to make correct decisions and to make the right choices, as if there's a right or wrong way to navigate life. But that definitely plays a role. Of course, it's easier said than done, because it is always easier to say something than it is to actually act on it. And I think that's a big barrier that a lot of people face, that sometimes it's all talk, 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 and people can't really walk the walk. But it's important that we're mindful of that if we do catch ourselves in that, because we don't want to be in that same energetic cycle. If we want things to change, we need to actually do something. But I understand that it's easier said than done to give advice outwardly. And one of the reasons for that, and something that I found online that was super great and makes so much sense, was that our situations are more emotionally involved because it's harder to see that bigger picture and step outside of it to be more logical when it's your life, when there are those emotional instances tied to a scenario or an event. And that's why, people always say that you shouldn't make decisions based off of an initial reaction or emotion, because sometimes it may not be coming, actually, most of the time, probably not coming from a logical place. So when you give advice to other people, it is from that outside perspective. And it's easier to see because it's not your life. And when it is your life, you often kind of explain yourself out of a situation, and then you're kind of emotionally biased when it is coming from that place. So you are saying, well, I don't have to do this because of XYZ. I can't take my own advice because, well, this is the scenario that I'm in because I feel this way, and whatever it is. But we are biased to ourselves, whether we are conscious of it or not. I think it does happen subconsciously. So the fact that we are like inside that picture, it is way harder to try to navigate without seeing it from afar. I think another thing that plays into not being able to take our own advice, which kind of ties into the very first part we talked about, was if we suffer from any type of imposter syndrome where we are doubting our own abilities to actually follow our advice and do what we say. Like, are we strong enough to do it? Can we actually block that person? Can we unfollow them? Can we set the boundary that we're telling our friends to set? Can I actually, whatever I need to do I believe in my ability to change my life if I do take my own advice? But if we are sitting in a place from not really knowing ourselves, I feel like it does become more challenging to do. I think that there's a fear of disappointment as well when it comes to taking our own advice. And I think that can stem from a place of not wanting to disappoint ourselves, and then for not either following our advice, or like following our advice and it not working out, or a fear of disappointing others, because I feel like from an outside perspective, we want to feel put together. And I think giving advice makes us feel that way. It makes us feel like we know what we're talking about. It makes us feel like we're wise. As I said earlier, I feel that way when I give advice. So not taking your own advice, I think, eliminates a fear of disappointing others, because if like you were to take it and it didn't work out for you specifically, well, what does that say about your advice? But I don't know, I feel like that doesn't need to have like a negative rep with it. I think that life isn't perfect, as we know, and as I mentioned earlier, and how I was reminded by my beautiful friend Kaya, but I don't think you're disappointing others. I don't think that if you take your own advice and things pivot in a direction that you didn't think it would, or it didn't turn out the way that you thought, that you'd be disappointing other people or disappointing yourself. It just means that you got to keep going or try something new, or because again, like, healing in life and all that stuff isn't linear. I think it's a lot easier to be harder on yourself, and I think that it's easier to give love outwardly to the people that you care about and that you see in a different perspective as being like so bright in your life, and then you're not really applying that same feeling toward yourself. So, yeah, I often find it easier to give other people in my life advice because I'm like, well, I want the best thing for you. I love you. I see you in this beautiful way, and I want you to see that for yourself. And I want to help you as much as I can so that you can feel incredible about your life. And then when it comes to ourselves, I feel like we are more critical. We put ourselves down more, which is sad that we don't speak to ourselves the way that we speak to our loved ones. And it's something that I am truthfully working on, and I've been working on it. And I think that comes from, time and patience and trial and error, but also having a stronger foundation of this is who I am and I'm proud of it, and having that higher self-esteem, which is something I'd love to talk about in the future, of like self-confidence and self-esteem, because I do feel like if you have that strong foundation, of having self-worth and self-esteem and value toward yourself, then it is a lot easier to not put yourself down and to maybe start taking your own advice the way that you would give advice to other people. And you know what? It is harder to take our own advice too, because I think it requires patience and graciousness and an understanding to hold space for the errors along the way. Because, like I said earlier, I feel like we think that we're going to disappoint ourselves or others, and then we think, yeah, if there are errors along the way, what does that say about us? But it doesn't say anything bad about us. It just means that life is life. Life is happening, and that's just what it is. And I get it. It's easier said than done, but holding space for grace and to know that you are trying your very best, that's all you can do, and you should be proud of that. But it is human nature, I feel, not to take your own advice because of everything we just discussed. But honestly, I think it boils down to human nature and how it is so normal not to take your own advice. So I want to remind you that you're not alone in that, and that everyone, I feel, has experienced this. And because it's your life, it's just harder to see the bigger picture. And taking your own advice is believing in what you're actually saying. You know what I mean? And sometimes that's a little bit challenging. Like, do you actually believe what you're saying? I hope that you do. I hope that you understand that you can apply that to your life too, because I also feel if we are in an energetic space, experiencing things for a reason, having the same scenarios or people that are like minded, the advice that you give to others is often well applied to yourself too if you actually applied it. You know what I mean? Where you're saying, like, you should see a therapist to talk about whatever these issues that you've raised. And then you're kind of thinking, oh, I should probably see a therapist to talk about the issues that I've raised before or feel inside of me. And then you don't go. But I mean, you should, because it could apply to you and it could transform your life and help you in so many ways. But how do you actually take your own advice? I mean, I don't have all the answers for you, unfortunately. I have one really good one, I think, but I think it will be helpful. And I feel like part of it is like, when you get to a point where you're so tired of not moving forward in life, you're tired of repeating the same thing over and over again. I think when you get to that point, which is unfortunate that a lot of us, a lot of the time, have to get to a point where we're just so fed up that we actually change. But it is easier to take your own advice at that point. But how can we do this a little bit maybe faster? Or how can we do this before feeling like, oh my gosh, I just need a change? I think what's helpful is to create distance because, again, you're inside of this picture. There are emotions involved. The perspective is a little bit cloudy in that sense. So stepping outside of the problem that you're facing will help you to see the solution and the advice more clearly. So you can do this by actively asking yourself, in terms of like, what should I do? Instead of saying you can think about it in the way of how you would tell your best friend or give your best friend advice. And then you could say, he or she should do this. So if I were to say, I should probably set that boundary with this person because I am struggling and I feel this way every single time I'm with them. And instead of saying, I should do this in my head, I should say, she should set a boundary, such as whatever it is, to make sure that that she's creating distance and space to protect her peace. I feel like that would be a way to step outside of the problem. You're thinking about it from like a third POV. You know what I mean? You're not thinking about it, what would I do? You're thinking about what would they do? But I think the hardest part about all of this is actually following through with the advice, because you could say that. Yeah, I could say he or she, but actually putting the plans into action is more challenging. And the point that I was talking about earlier about how being tired of the same outcome in the same situation is kind of when you need to just do it and make a change. So that's a good indication of like, wow, I just need to do it. But I want to remind you that nothing changes if nothing changes. And while I am holding space for the fact that change is challenging, and we have a whole episode about change and why we resist it as humans and everything like that. But the fact is that you're in control of your life. And the universe and God will shift the experiences for you the moment that your energy shifts and you finally decide that the advice you give others could help you too. And it starts with you, and you actually just have to do it. And yeah, it requires some discipline, but once you just do it, I know that you're going to feel better because I personally, when I just do something that I know I should do, I automatically am moving forward in a new way energetically. So then things are easier. And then you kind of say to yourself, wow, it actually wasn't that difficult. I just had to start. So I believe in you if you are feeling like you need to shift something or that. You should really take your own advice that you're saying to your friend because you're in a similar situation and that the advice that you're giving so wisely could absolutely apply to you. I truly believe that you can shift it and change your life. But again, it starts with you. So I hope that you can start believing in yourself the way that I'm saying that I believe in you. And yeah, I want to reiterate that it's so normal and it's so human and it's so okay. And honestly, that is what I wanted to say to you guys. That is, I think, a good end, that I believe that you can take your own advice. And yeah, the more you do it, I feel like the easier it'll become, hopefully. Anyway, guys, I hope that you were able to take something from today's episode. Of course, if you didn't resonate with it, that is so okay. I hope next week's episode does speak to you more if this one didn't. But if something did speak to you, I would so appreciate it if you could share this episode with someone in your life that you also feel should hear it. And of course, I hope that your week is filled with endless opportunities of joy and love and light. I'm sending all of that incredible energy to you, so I hope that you feel it. I am recording this episode a little bit earlier on in the week because I have a busy weekend ahead, but I can't wait to recap with you guys about the show that I'm going to on the weekend. I'm seeing two of my amazing friends, Brett and Han, perform at this bar, and it's going to be such a fun night with the girls and just seeing them and all of the other dancers. I just can't wait. I can't wait. So I'll recap that with you guys next week. And until then, I will miss you, but I will see you next Monday. Okay, bye guys.